What if everything you're struggling with, your relationships, your anxiety, that deep, exhausting feeling of not being enough, has nothing to do with who you are today, and everything to do with the child you left behind? And what if I told you that child is still here, right now, shaping every decision you make, every emotion you feel, and every time you sabotage your own happiness? Carl Jung and Gabor Maté both discovered something most people will never realize in a lifetime, that hidden behind every emotional struggle is a silent cry for help, from the part of you that was forgotten the moment life demanded you to grow up. Today, you'll discover why that child holds the key to your emotional freedom, and what happens when you finally decide to stop running and start listening. Stay with me, because once you hear this truth, you'll never look at your life the same way again. Heal your inner child. These 4 simple words carry a power that most people will never fully comprehend. Inside each of us lives a version of ourselves that we've long forgotten, innocent, sensitive, and above all, deeply emotional. This inner child didn't disappear with the passage of time. She simply learned how to hide. She adapted to survive in a world that rarely understood her needs. She learned to smile when she wanted to cry, to stay silent when she needed to scream, and to appear strong when she felt completely abandoned. But despite everything, one thing never changed. She never stopped feeling. She never stopped longing for love, for safety, for someone, anyone, to tell her, "You are enough, just as you are." And whether you realize it or not, that child is still with you, right now. She's the invisible force behind your relationships, the hidden voice whispering doubts when things go well, and the silent ache you feel every time you try to love, but something inside pulls you back. Carl Jung believed this hidden self, this inner child, is the gateway to emotional freedom. He taught that as long as we deny her existence, we remain fragmented, trapped in endless cycles of fear, pain, and self-abandonment. And here's where it gets even more profound. According to trauma expert Gabor Maté, healing doesn't start by fixing what's on the surface. It begins the moment we turn inward and meet the parts of ourselves we've rejected for far too long. So, ask yourself, why do I keep attracting people who hurt me? Why do I sabotage my own happiness when I finally start to feel good? No matter how much I achieve, do I still feel not enough? These aren't coincidences. They are the echoes of a child who was never truly seen, never fully loved, and never made to feel safe in her most vulnerable moments. And until you choose to listen, to finally meet her where she's been waiting all these years, your life will remain a loop of silent suffering, masked by temporary distractions and fleeting moments of joy. But here's the hope. You can change this story. You can become the safe place she's been searching for. You can be the one who finally stays. And when that happens, everything in your life begins to shift. So stay with me. Because what you're about to discover isn't just a lesson, it's a turning point. And just maybe, it's exactly what that little child inside you has been waiting for all along. The invisible chains of your past. Have you ever stopped to wonder why some moments feel heavier than they should? Why a simple conversation triggers a wave of anxiety, or why silence from someone you love feels like unbearable rejection? It's not because you're broken. It's because a part of you is still carrying the weight of every moment you were left unheard, unseen, and unloved. This is the voice of your inner child, still crying out for what was missing. And until that voice is acknowledged, you will keep reliving the same pain, no matter how hard you try to move forward. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Think about that. How many times have you told yourself, "This always happens to me," or "Why do I always choose the wrong people?" That's not fate. That's the silent script written by your wounded inner child. A script that plays in the background of your life, influencing your choices, your relationships, and the way you see yourself. But what if you could rewrite that script? What if those painful patterns that seem to follow you aren't a life sentence, but a message? A message from the forgotten parts of you, asking to be acknowledged and healed. Are you willing to listen to the part of you that's been waiting your entire life to be heard? This isn't about blaming your past. It's about understanding how the past lives in you, shaping every moment. Gabor Maté teaches that trauma isn't just what happened to you. It's the absence of what should have happened, the nurturing touch that never came, the comforting words you never heard, the protection you desperately needed but didn't receive. And when those needs go unmet, the child within you doesn't forget. She learns to survive. She builds walls. She creates defenses. She invents stories to explain why love was out of reach. And those survival strategies don't disappear with age. They evolve. They become the way you cope with love, trust, and vulnerability. That's why you shut down when someone gets too close, or why you work so hard to earn love that should have always been freely given. And when life feels overwhelming, you wonder, why am I falling apart over something so small? But to your inner child, nothing is small. Every moment of discomfort feels like a return to those early wounds. Yet, there's something you need to understand. Your inner child doesn't want you to relive her pain. She wants to feel safe. She wants to be seen by the only person who can offer her the love she needed, you. Will you keep running from her voice, burying it beneath distractions and temporary successes? Or will you finally sit with her and listen? Because once you choose to listen, everything can begin to change. Why you keep repeating the same pain? Have you ever noticed how life seems to pull you back into the same painful patterns? No matter how much you try to change, you tell yourself things will be different, but somehow, the same story plays out again and again. You meet people who seem perfect at first, but end up reopening old wounds. You start new habits, convinced this time you'll stick with them, only to watch them slowly fall apart. And just when happiness feels within reach, something inside pulls you back into the familiar cycle of self-doubt and regret. This isn't bad luck. It's not some cruel twist of fate. It's a pattern, carefully woven into the fabric of your life by a part of you that never had the chance to heal. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious mind controls far more of our lives than we realize. The wounds you don't acknowledge become the invisible hands steering your decisions. And every time you ignore that small, quiet voice inside, the one that still hurts, you tighten the chains that keep you stuck. Your inner child carries the emotional blueprint for how you navigate love, trust, success, and even failure. If that child learned that love had to be earned through perfection or self-sacrifice, you'll find yourself repeating that belief in every relationship. If she learned that speaking up brought punishment or rejection, you'll stay silent even when your heart is breaking to be heard. And here's the painful truth. You don't recreate these patterns because you want to suffer. You recreate them because they feel familiar. Gabor Maté explains that the human mind doesn't instinctively seek happiness, it seeks what it knows. And if what you knew as a child was inconsistency, rejection, or emotional neglect, that's what feels normal, even if it hurts. This is why people stay in toxic relationships long after they know they should leave. It's why you might push away opportunities that could change your life for the better. Somewhere deep inside, a part of you still believes that safety is found in the familiar, not in the unknown. But here's what no one ever taught you. That safety you're chasing outside yourself, it's not there. It's inside you. And it begins the moment you stop running from your pain and start turning toward it. What would happen if you stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" Every painful pattern is a lesson your inner child has been waiting for you to learn. She's been trying to show you where it hurts, where healing needs to happen. But healing doesn't begin by fixing everything all at once. It starts with noticing. The next time you feel that wave of anxiety rise from nowhere, ask yourself, what does this remind me of? The next time you find yourself trying too hard to earn someone's love, pause and remember, you weren't born believing you had to prove your worth. That belief was given to you by someone who couldn't see your value. And when you're on the edge of sabotaging something good, pulling away from someone who loves you, quitting something important before it can succeed, recognize that moment for what it is. It's not weakness. It's a survival strategy, one that's kept you safe for years. But you don't have to keep living this way. You have the power to break free. And it begins with one small, brave decision. to sit with your discomfort instead of running from it. Because beneath every anxious thought, every self-sabotaging behavior, and every moment of despair, there's a child still waiting to be held, to be told she's safe now. She's not waiting for anyone else. She's waiting for you. How to finally break the cycle and begin real healing. You might be wondering, how do I actually begin to heal my inner child? The truth is, healing doesn't begin with grand gestures or life-changing breakthroughs. It begins with something far more powerful: awareness. For most of your life, you've been trying to survive. You learned to ignore the discomfort, push through the pain, and pretend everything was fine. But every time you avoided the hard feelings, every time you distracted yourself with work, relationships, or achievements, you buried that child a little deeper. And yet, she never left. She's still there, waiting for the moment you finally turn toward her with compassion instead of avoidance. Carl Jung called this process integration. It's not about destroying the painful parts of you. It's about bringing them into the light, gently, and allowing them to exist without shame. So how do you start? Begin by noticing the moments when you feel emotionally overwhelmed. When you're about to fall into old patterns, take a breath and ask yourself, who is feeling this right now? Is it the adult version of me, or the child who never learned how to process this kind of pain? You'll be surprised by how often it's not the adult you reacting. It's the child within you, still stuck in the past, still longing for comfort. In those moments, imagine sitting beside her. Picture her small, vulnerable, afraid. She doesn't need you to criticize her. She doesn't need you to tell her to toughen up. She needs you to listen, to stay, to offer the words she's always needed to hear. You're safe now. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. This is how real healing begins, not by erasing the past, but by creating a safe space in the present. Gabor Maté teaches that the essence of trauma isn't the painful event itself, but the disconnection that follows, the feeling of being left alone in your suffering. Healing that disconnection is the greatest gift you can offer yourself, and it starts by practicing presence. Be present when you're feeling anxious. Don't run from it. Sit with it. Ask yourself, what is this feeling trying to teach me? Be present when you notice yourself pulling away from someone who loves you. Instead of retreating, pause and ask, am I pushing them away because they're unsafe, or because I've never learned to feel safe when love is offered freely? And when you feel that familiar ache, that deep sense of not being enough, remember this. You were born worthy. You didn't have to earn love as a child, and you don't have to earn it now. The love you're looking for has always been within your reach. But first, you have to offer it to yourself. No one else can do this for you. You can spend years searching for someone to fill that void, but the only person who can heal the wounds left by the past is you. And when you finally choose to show up for yourself, day after day, even when it's hard, that's when the cycle begins to break. You stop chasing love. You stop begging for validation. You begin to live from a place of quiet strength, knowing that you are enough exactly as you are. It won't happen overnight. You'll still have moments where the old patterns feel easier than the new ones. But each time you choose compassion over criticism, each time you stay present instead of running away, you send a powerful message to your inner child. I'm here. I'm staying. You are safe now. And slowly, she begins to believe it. That's when you'll notice something extraordinary. The relationships in your life start to change. You no longer tolerate what once felt familiar but painful. You no longer accept love that comes with conditions. And for the first time, you start to experience real peace, not because the world around you changed, but because you changed. This is the moment where the real journey begins, not the one where you try to fix everything at once, but the one where you finally accept that you don't need fixing at all. You just needed to come home to yourself, becoming the safe place you've always needed. Imagine, for a moment, what your life would look like if you stopped running from your emotions and started embracing them as messengers, not enemies to fight off, but signals pointing to exactly where healing needs to happen. Every time you feel that wave of insecurity, every time anxiety rises without warning, And every time you catch yourself holding back tears because you were taught that showing emotion makes you weak, that is your inner child speaking to you. She isn't trying to ruin your day or keep you stuck in the past. She's trying to remind you that there's a part of you still waiting for care, still longing for acceptance. Carl Jung believed that wholeness is not achieved by becoming perfect. It's achieved by embracing what we once rejected, our fears, our shame, our sadness, and most importantly, the vulnerability we've hidden for so long. This is where true transformation begins, not through pretending to be strong or wearing emotional armor, but through the courage to finally say, "This is where it hurts, and I'm willing to feel it." Gabor Maté reminds us that real healing doesn't come from avoiding pain. It comes from facing it with kindness, without trying to change it immediately or push it away. This is the practice of presence, being fully with yourself, even in the moments when you feel most fragile. And the more you practice this, the more you create something you've been searching for your entire life: safety. You become the safe place that your inner child has always needed. In this space, you no longer criticize yourself for feeling too much or being too sensitive. You start to understand that those feelings are not flaws. They're evidence that your heart is still open, still longing for connection, still capable of love. When you stand in front of a mirror and hear that critical voice say, "You're not good enough," pause and ask yourself, whose voice is that? Is it really your voice, or is it an echo from the past? The harsh words of a parent, a teacher, a caregiver who didn't know how to love you the way you deserved. And in that moment, you get to choose. Do you keep repeating their words, or do you create new ones? You can place your hand over your heart, look into your own eyes, and whisper the words you've needed to hear for a lifetime. You are enough. You are worthy. You are safe now. This isn't just a mental exercise. Your nervous system responds to these new messages. Your brain begins to rewire itself around compassion instead of fear. And over time, the loud voices of criticism grow quieter, replaced by a gentle knowing that you no longer need to fight for your worth. You start to trust yourself again. You begin to open up to healthy love, not because you're desperate for it, but because you're no longer afraid of losing it. You realize that you don't have to become someone else to be loved. You don't have to earn love through perfection or self-sacrifice. You only need to show up as you are, fully, honestly, and without apology. And when that shift happens, everything changes. You stop choosing people who trigger your deepest wounds. You stop running from opportunities because you think you're not ready. You begin to live as someone who knows they are worthy of the good things life has to offer. This is not a quick fix. It's a practice. A choice you make every day to stay with yourself, especially when things get hard. To be the loving, patient, and kind presence you've always needed. And even when you fall back into old patterns, and you will from time to time, you'll recover faster. You'll remember that every moment of struggle is just another opportunity to return home to yourself, because healing isn't about never feeling pain again. It's about knowing that no matter what life throws at you, you have the tools, the awareness, and the love within you to face it. And most importantly, you'll no longer be waiting for someone else to save you. You'll finally realize you were the one you've been waiting for all along. Healing your inner child is not a destination. It's not a final moment where everything magically becomes perfect. It's a journey, a choice you make over and over again, to stay with yourself when life gets hard, to stand beside the most fragile parts of you instead of abandoning them. Every time you choose kindness over harsh self-criticism, every time you pause and breathe instead of running from discomfort, you're writing a new story. One where love doesn't have to be earned. One where your worth isn't defined by your past or your mistakes. You are not here to keep reliving the same pain. You're here to break the cycle, to become the person you once needed. And in doing that, you unlock something extraordinary: peace. Not the fleeting kind that depends on external circumstances, but a deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you are enough, exactly as you are. So before you move on with your day, ask yourself this simple but life-changing question. What would change in my life if I treated myself like someone worth fighting for? Let that answer guide your next step. Because the truth is, the life you've always wanted doesn't start when everything outside of you changes. It begins the moment you decide to come home, to yourself. And just maybe, that's the greatest love story you'll ever live.